Welcome, writers, game masters, and creatives to the World Builders Tavern! Today we are talking about the TV series Avatar: The Last Airbender, so be warned, there will be spoilers. Grab an ale and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly barkeep, along with Allison.
Hello.
And Christiana.
Hi.
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers!
Cheers!
Quick housekeeping note, you may notice that my audio is once again a little bit weird. We do not record all of these episodes in order, so that's why it's kind of going back and forth between good audio and weird audio. But this should be the last weird audio episode. Thank you so much for bearing with us as I have moved continents. But with that, let's get into talking about what you're all here for, which is Avatar: The Last Airbender. Woo-hoo! For those of you who don't know or need a bit of a refresher, Avatar is set in an Asiatic-inspired world in which some people can telekinetically manipulate one of the four elements: water, earth, fire, or air, through practices known as bending. The only individual who can bend all four elements, the Avatar, is responsible for maintaining harmony across the world's four nations and serves as the link between the physical world and the spirit world. This series is centered around the journey of 12-year-old Aang, the current Avatar and last survivor of his nation, the Air Nomads, with his friends Katara, Sokka, and Toph, as they strive to end the Fire Nation's war against the other nations and defeat the Fire Lord before he conquers the world. Dun, dun, dun.
I would like to argue with this explanation that bending is not telekinetic because it also involves martial arts and motions. Yes. I don't think you can bend if you can't move.
Interesting.
So that's one thing that I really love about the magic system, so I have to insert that little caveat there.
I would maybe say that it's still telekinetic, but you're just channeling your telekinetic abilities through the motions. But
I guess it's unclear.
I feel like
could a paraplegic bend? Yeah. I'm not sure.
That's true. We haven't seen that, so
this feels like the argument between wizard versus sorcerer. Like one person uses spells and one person just does it kind of thing. So at the end of the day, they're both magic wielders. Yeah.
So it is implied that you need to move in the show when Boomy is completely incarcerated. But then he bends anyway, even though he is all chained up or not chained up. He's in like a block of metal or something.
Yeah.
So it is unclear. But martial arts seem to be a really big part of it, and like you need to memorize certain motions and stuff to do certain moves, which I find really fun and interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's jump on that as our first world building thing. I love that as world building, physical motions connected to magic. And inspired by martial arts is very cool.
I mean, there are some disability implications there. Like, if you are disabled and in a wheelchair, can you bend?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But there is one of my favorite disabled characters in this show. So.
Yes. Toph, I'm assuming you're speaking about.
Yes.
She's
amazing. Toph is a blind earthbender, for those who are not familiar with the show.
So she can move, she just can't see.
Yes. Yeah.
I think actually kind of the idea, what I found myself, so I will start this off by saying I've been meaning to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender for many, many years because being a big giant dork, involved in big giant dork things, everyone's constantly telling me I need to watch it, and I've been putting it off because I know it's like a kid's show and I'm a horrible, disgusting little freak who loves horror movies and stuff, and I'm like, I know I'm probably not going to lose my mind for it. But I actually found it the most realistic, I guess I could say, or at least most believable explanation of like training magic, if that makes sense. When people are like, so frequently in fantasy novels, you hear things like you just have to dig down into the well of power that exists within you. And that's such like a hard thing for me to imagine. Whereas the idea of kind of training yourself to do certain movements and move your hands in certain ways and say certain things, and like that makes a lot more sense to me when it comes to practicing magic versus just either you got it or you don't kind of thing. So
it's like a martial art.
Yeah.
You have to work at it.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and one of the main points of the show is that Aang has to find or bending masters to master the 3 elements that he does not know as well, because he's like a master at airbending already.
Yes.
So he has to learn the other 3.
Which normally he would have gotten in his Avatar training, but because his training was cut short by his entire people being destroyed, he had to go find them
he
himself.
was in an icicle for 100 years. 100? 1,000?
100 years, yeah.
100, yeah.
I think it's 100 or 200.
I think it is
100
because Zuko comments that he would be an old man, so they do think he's still alive. Yeah.
Yeah. And got trapped and then gets thawed. Like Yvonne of the Yukon, but less ridiculous.
That's such a specifically Canadian
deep Canadian cut. For all of our Canadian listeners over a certain age, shout out. Do you remember this show?
So expanding on the magic system, I really loved how it establishes these simple rules in the first episodes or even the first season, and then it just sort of builds and builds and builds. So it's not overwhelming. Sometimes you're tempted as a writer to sort of, I made this awesome magic system, I have to give all the information that I know about it to my readers all at once because it's so cool and they'll want to know, and we do want to know, but it's funner if you slowly drip that information to us. And so Avatar does it by sort of giving us the basics. At first, we only know water bending. We meet Katara first. She bends water, and so we're like, oh, this is cool magic. Then we learn. I mean, the intro sort of fills us in on the 4 elements and the 4 bending. And so then we slowly meet other benders. We meet Zuko, who's a firebender. We meet Boomy, who's earthbender. Is that all 4? Water, air, fire, earth.
Yeah.
And slowly learn different things about them. And I really love how different they are. Like, waterbending is sort of these flowing movements, but it can also be used combatively and also as healing. I loved how Katara wanted to be a warrior, and she challenges the water tribe to train her when all women are only supposed to do healing.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I also I found Katara's especially interesting because of the whole kind of I'll boldly say misogynistic trait in society for women to only be ever caregivers and healers and like hold other people and never be the people to defend or protect or attack or anything like that, right? Like, it's always kind of like a reactive state versus a proactive state, and she wants to be proactive with her magic instead of reactive, and like that whole struggle I found really interesting.
I also love her character because she is such a caregiver, like mother type character to the group, and yet she's a warrior who wants to learn how to use her magic.
And it's that conversation of how you could do both. Right? Like, it's not just aggression and just attacking or anything like that. Like, believe it or not, women are complex whole beings who are capable of multiple things at once. So.
And then you have firebending, which is, at least the way Zuko does it, it seems very like angry and combative and doesn't seem to have much purpose beyond fighting, because fire in its very nature is...
Which I've actually found that interesting, because fire, like when now as a current society where we have all of these things given to us in many ways, right? Like it's not, we never have to learn how to make a fire by ourselves, right? Whereas for a long time, that was the difference between life or death, right? Like, fire was life-giving for a long time. So I always find it interesting when worlds make fire default bad guys. Because I'm like, for a long time, fire was the default life bringer, right? So.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the way that we see firebending in the show, while yes, they are the aggressors, I don't think I think that maybe that's more of a reflection on the Fire Lord and the
Yes.
empire
Yeah.
that he has
Yeah. I'll
created
agree
rather
with
than
that.
firebending itself. Like,
Yeah.
were they being led by somebody more like, for example, Uncle Iroh, who is a fantastic character and is like he's a firebender, but he's like a very like gentle, peaceful, calm, wise man. If he were leading the Fire Nation, maybe we would see applications of it that are different. But like because
making
the Fire
tea.
Lord,
Yeah.
like making tea, yeah. So it is really cool to see the nature of magic being influenced by the circumstances of the world, and like you
Yes.
maybe think, oh well, what else could it look like if this wasn't how the world was?
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
And then you have
Oh, I had a
earthbending,
thought, but I forgot.
which I really enjoyed the book, the Earth book, when Aang starts learning from Toph, because he has the hardest time learning Earth because it's the opposite of air, and you have to like air is all about movement and like getting out of the way and agility, and earthbending is all about standing your ground and like punching rocks. And I find that really fun. So I like that a lot. And then after you learn all those basics, you get some rules that are broken. So in the first season,
that's one of my favorite things. I love that.
my favorite things. I love that too. So in the first season, when Katara goes on that Fire Nation prison ship, she learns the ship is all made of metal because it holds earthbenders, and earthbenders can't bend metal. And then what do we learn in the later season? Because Toph is awesome. She's put in a metal cage at one point, and she bends it, and she becomes like the first metal bender.
She invents metal bending.
She becomes Magneto.
And then you also, oh my goodness, it's so awesome. That I don't know. That moment just made me feel so happy. Like, yes, you can't hold her down. You know, like that was so good.
Yeah, and all of the magic systems have that.
Yeah, because you learn Azula can lightning bend, which is a form of firebending. Water.
There's blood bending.
There's blood bending. In the later Legend of Korra season, there's lava
do we want to do Legend of Korra? Do we want to do Legend of Korra spoilers?
Briefly mentioning there is lava bending, which is another form of earth bending. So it just builds and builds. So I want to talk about why, because normally we tell authors you set your rules and don't break them. So why do you two think that breaking them works so well in this case?
If I could have a moment.
Ooh, I have thoughts.
Because
go for it.
So what this series made me think of so much was of the X-Men, as a giant X-Men fan, right? Where like, how far can you push it, right? Like Magneto giving someone a pill that has like extra iron in it and then being able to control their blood and kind of things like that. Like I think it's less breaking the rules and more pushing them to their absolute limit. And it makes sense. Like with water and blood bending, that was my first question. With us, like, we control water. Like immediately, like in the first episode, I was like, so you can control people, right? So you can control blood. Like,
oh my goodness, my brain did not go there.
That was like my first thought. I was like, well, we're all water. Why can't you just like toss people around like rag dolls kind of thing? So I found it really satisfying because, like I said, it was less breaking the rules and more pushing them to their limits. And I think that's something that authors need to take into consideration is, are you thoroughly breaking the rule? Are you truly snapping it in half and making sure it doesn't matter anymore? Or are you taking something and just like kind of stepping it towards its logical conclusion, like to the furthest reach you can get that rule to work? Because then generally people will buy into it, right? Like I said, the example with Magneto getting people to like take iron pills and then being able to control them better. Yeah, that's a little bonkers and it kind of doesn't fit into the rules, but it's buyable. People will buy into it, right? And it's the same thing with blood bending, at least. Like I said, for my experience was, well, people are made of water, blood is liquid. Why can't we control blood? Kind of thing, right? Like it's a little bit not the rule, but it fits just enough inside the rules that I fall for it.
Yeah. And I think also I think of something So I believe so. Everybody, or many people who are into genre fiction are familiar with Brandon Sanderson's Laws of Magic, where he talks about like how he creates magic systems, and he differentiates between soft magic and hard magic. Soft magic being where you don't really explain how it works; it's more like Lord of the Rings magic. You don't know a lot of the rules; it's kind of there. And then hard magic being like a lot of what Brandon Sanderson writes, or what I would say Avatar also falls into this, where it's like the rules are pretty clear, like you know what they are, they're clearly outlined. And I think in a hard magic system, you have a lot more freedom to break those rules or bend those rules because you know what the rules are.
Yeah.
So it feels less like a Deus Ex Machina
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, well, we didn't know that now all of a sudden you can do that. That's convenient.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, to me, it feels more like a scientific discovery. Like it's like in seventh grade, you're taught, that there are these circles of electrons that go around the like nucleus. And then in 12th grade, you learn that's not really true. Really, it's more like this weird like haze of like they're all flying everywhere and it's not the same thing, but now you're going deeper into it. And I feel like that's what this felt like. It's not canceling out those rules. It's just like, those are the basics. Here's the advanced stuff.
That's a great point.
There's also a difference between what the rules are and what you know that they are as the author and what the characters think that they are. The characters in Avatar think that earthbenders can't bend metal because that's what they know. So you're not actually breaking the rule when you inform them that actually metal bending is possible. It's just they didn't know that. So I think that also makes it you're not actually breaking your rules. So I will say you still should not break the rules you put in place. But maybe the rules aren't what the characters think they are. So I think that's really fun. Brandon Sanderson is also really good at doing that in his books. Like he'll have characters think certain things and then slowly build their knowledge and information. So that's a really fun thing to play with if you like playing with magic systems.
And I think like what Christiana said about it being like logical, I think also is a big part of it, right? Because like if you found out that like waterbenders can also like fly, and it's like but that doesn't like what. But it's like, oh, water is in blood. That makes sense. Like metal is found in the earth. That makes sense. Like, you have to have something that connects it, or then it does start to feel like that was just a cheap thing to get out because they were stuck and didn't know what to do.
Like, not all magic can be a miracle, I think is kind of like the thing that I think about a lot. Like, if something is truly miraculous and way too convenient, and it's like, magically, I'm suddenly able to vaporize people by giving them a little wink of my eyelashes kind of thing. Like, that's not helpful and it won't make for a great story. But being able to, like I said, with this story, it's kind of at least a somewhat logical conclusion. Like, trust your readers at least a little bit to give it some leeway. As long as it still largely fits with the rules, you can, push them to their limits. But it can't be a miracle every single time.
Then it just starts to feel like you don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
On that same note of building details slowly and slowly, I want to talk about one thing I love about this show is that it reveals world building details as they relate to character. And we often don't talk about characters so much on this show because it's not exactly a world building thing.
It's adjacent.
But it's adjacent. But Avatar combines the two. For example, we start by learning about the Water Tribe, but it's not just out of nowhere. We learn about the Water Tribe because it matters, because it's Sokka and Katara's home. So details about the world are revealed slowly through each episode, and each episode is very much centered on the characters, and generally they're learning something or growing. And so the world building starts really simple, just as the characters seem to be at first. Like, there are 4 nations. Sokka is headstrong and funny. Katara is gentle. Aang is goofy. Zuko is angry. Just sort of these one-dimensional things. And then the show slowly starts to build through character the world. And I just love how it sort of meshes those two things together and you can't really separate them. And I think that's a really good way of writing your story because your readers are there for characters. At least I am. Maybe not everyone is. But it's funny because I'm on a world building show.
It's also
they're related.
It's also a realistic way of people understanding worlds, right? Like if I this is a random example. When I moved to Vancouver Island, I didn't read every single book and article there was about Vancouver Island and its terminology and the things that you know about it or whatever. It was through conversations with coworkers where they're like, "Oh, you haven't been to Shirley Delicious? You need to go to Shirley Delicious. Shirley Delicious has been around for 20 years and everyone loves the sausage rolls," right? Like, and then you learn a little bit more about the island. And then when you go to Shirley Delicious, you find out the person who's been there has been working there for 30 years and everyone loves them. And you know what I mean? Like you slowly, even in real life, that's how people learn about the world that they're existing in, right? No one sits down a 5-year-old and is like, here's absolutely every single thing you need to know about planet Earth. It's learned through meeting people and dialogue and experiences and things like that. So that's always, in my opinion, kind of like the default best way to explore a world is through these relationships and characters and dialogue and situations.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And yet sometimes people who love world building, and I've done this, just sort of spit all those world building details out on the page at once because they're cool and they made this world.
Because you're excited.
And that's okay for the first draft is too, like the thing. Yeah, like if you need to word vomit it all out and like get it all in one place, do that. But instead of just having like, nothing's worse than opening a book and it's like, enter the world of Elithra, and this person is so-and-so, and they're the throne to
1,000 years ago, there was a war, and then 100 years ago.
Immediately, you're like, oh my god, okay, so I have a whole chapter.
Then the Earth Nation attacked. Or then the Fire Nation attacked. Avatar gets away with that in the intro because it's an intro.
And it's also so short.
The whole show is that.
It's
short. If the show was just being told information like that, it would be awful. So
But I mean, also sometimes I think that is a good way of doing it instead of doing a prologue, because like they could have done a whole episode, right, showing the Fire Nation attacking, showing you know, the lead up to the war, and they didn't because that's superfluous. But you still need to know that information, so it's like sometimes having a little bit that explains it is, we always say show don't tell, but you know, sometimes
if it's
telling is better. You know, break the rules sometimes. Like sometimes you gotta tell because you don't want to see 4 chapters of setup.
But the caveat is if you can get it as tight as the intro to Atla.
Yes,
right?
If you can be 2 sentences,
if you can have
then tell us.
2 sentences in italics before your first chapter where it's like, earth, air, water, fire. They all lived in peace until the Fire Nation attacked. And then you go into your story, like, that's great. You're allowed to do that. Yeah. Just don't do the whole...
If you can put it in a haiku, you can tell us.
Actually, I feel like we should trademark that rule. Like, if you're allowed opening a story with exposition if it can fit in a haiku. Yeah.
There you go.
I do see writers complain a lot about the show don't tell advice because they're like, well, can I just never tell things? And it's like, yes, of course you can tell. You have to tell.
Yeah.
Writing is a combination of showing and telling. But the reason why this is constantly drilled into people is because writers often tell when they should show.
Yeah.
Yes.
So just understanding.
Why 9 out of 10 times you're showing.
And it's also like, imagine... What I like to think of when I'm writing with a show versus tell is imagine like a magic trick or like a phenomenal gymnastic feat or something like that. If I was talking to someone who could do that thing, would I rather them explain that thing to me or just do that thing for me? Right? And like that's something that I think about a lot where it's like, you know what? Sometimes there is a situation where it's like, I can't possibly do this thing in this moment. So I just need to explain to you why this thing is happening. That's fine. But 9 times out of 10, it's like, if you tell me you can do a backflip, I'd rather you just do the backflip, you know, than tell me you can.
That's a really good advice.
Yeah.
This seems like a good time to move to our proprietor's pick.
Ooh.
I had a tricky time finding a novel to recommend that you might like to read if you like Avatar. Because I wanted something middle grade, and I found it's hard to find middle grade that has such a large scope And there's a lot of novels that play with elemental magic. So if you like that sort of thing, there's a lot of like YA and adult novels that do that. But I wanted to capture the sort of the adventure and the kind of the little kid kind of feel that's still fun for adults to read. Mm-hmm. And so I picked a graphic novel that I read last year. It's called Wingbearer, written by Marjorie M. Liu and illustrated by Tenny Izekanian. And the novel is about a girl named Zuli who is raised by mystical bird spirits in the branches of the great tree, and she's never ventured beyond the safe haven because she's never had to until now, when a sinister force threatens the life-giving magic of the tree. Zuli, along with her guardian owl, Frowley, must get to the root of it. She has to face an ancient dragon, the so-called witch queen, and most surprisingly of all, her true identity. So I read this and I just adored it, and I will say Frowley is...
I was gonna say, even just off the name Frowley, I'm like sold. Already my favorite. Yeah.
I can't properly describe the expressions that the artist captures that this owl makes in the graphic novel. They're so funny. Like, oh my goodness. So I really enjoyed this. It kind of captures the wonder and adventure of Avatar, and it also had, I also found it had some D&D vibes. And I love D&D. If you feel like that might be your jam, check out this graphic novel. I really enjoyed it.
It sounds really good.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Maybe we should talk about it on the podcast. Yeah. It's got some good world building in there.
Hey world builders, Emma here. It's halfway through November, which means that I, Allie, and Christiana, along with thousands across the globe, are deep in the throes of our National Novel Writing Month projects. To help keep us inspired as we write 1,600 words a day, we are going to be hosting our first ever Tavern live stream question and answer episode this weekend, Sunday, November 19th, 2023 at noon Central Standard Time. We'll be bringing some of our own world building tangles to work out, as well as answering your questions. So, if you have a burning world building question from your Nano project, or any other world you're building, join our Discord and post it in our Ask the Barkeeps channel. Then make sure to tune in on the 19th. We'll be posting the link to the live stream on our Discord and on Twitter. Check the show notes for the links. Can't wait to serve you live on November 19th.
And with that, everybody's favorite part of the podcast, Last Call, where we, your wise and illustrious host, will ask you some questions and give you some thoughts of what you can take from Avatar: The Last Airbender to apply to your own world building. Allison, what do you think our listeners can take from the world building of Avatar: The Last Airbender?
Pressure's on. Wise and illustrious.
Yeah.
Right.
One of us is wise, one of us is illustrious. You guys decide who is who.
One of us is just extra big.
It's just there.
The little guy.
But we won't tell you who's
Yeah.
No, you have to get it from our questions.
It changes every episode.
Oh,
yes. Okay, my advice. Think about how to reveal world building details by how they relate to a specific character, preferably your narrating character or protagonist, because that's who you want your reader to be relating to the most. And I actually wanted to give you a suggestion of how to practically do this at a line level. So I pulled an example from The Rise of Kyoshi, which is a novel that takes place in the Avatar universe by FCE.
Oh, okay.
So the sentence reads, "It had disturbed Jianzhu to see crop fields so meager and balding as he'd rode through the countryside into town for the first time."
Ooh.
So this is a really simple sentence. All it's doing is describing these crop fields that are meager and balding. And so the sentence could have been just describing them. The crop fields were meager and balding. But instead it relates it to Jianzhu, the narrating character, who and how he feels about them, and also places him in the scene because he's riding through them. And so by orienting us to the character first and how the character is reacting to the scenery, it really encourages readers to actually pay attention to the description instead of just glossing over it, because you're grounding it in this character. So that is my advice and challenge to you. And this is something you can do in your second round. You don't have to do this when you're first drafting, but something you can do when you're editing, when you're self-editing, you can go through and see, okay, how can I ground this description with with how the character is interacting with it instead of just stating it. So that's my advice.
Oh, that's great advice.
That's a good one. I like it. I'm going to say my advice is to spend some time reading up on when to show and when to tell. So kind of like we were talking about how in Avatar things start off simple and then you learn more. Writing 101 is show, don't tell. Writing 201 is sometimes tell.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like... People have actually like talked a lot about this. So if you look it up online, there's a lot of like resources, discussions on sort of when to tell, when to show if you're having trouble figuring it out. A good rule of thumb is just you should tell when you need to summarize something and show when you don't need to summarize, when it's part of the story. But maybe that's a little bit, sometimes, just hearing it one way doesn't quite sink in. So if you're still having a little bit of confusion or you're a little bit not sure when to do which, spend some time researching that. So I'm actually just giving you homework. There you go. And Christiana, what do you have to tell our listeners from Avatar: The Last Airbender?
I think my advice based off of this story is learning when to push the rules, never break the rules, never change the rules. They need to be internally consistent. But if you have the opportunity to kind of push them to their limits a little bit and like put them a little further than maybe the characters would think they originally could go, can sometimes have this really phenomenal payoff. So as long as it's internally consistent and you're not outright destroying the rules, push them a little bit. Push them past what the character would expect.
Oh, I like that. Amazing. So those are our wise and illustrious thoughts to ponder as you go out and build your own world. But with that, it's gotta be closing time. Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern. We hope very much to serve you here again soon. If you just can't get enough and you want more content before we put out our next episode, you can find us on Discord. The link to that is in the show notes. We are also on Twitter, forever known as Twitter, at WB Tavern Pod. And on TikTok, you can listen to Christiana and watch Christiana. If you're not sure what Christiana looks like, head over to our TikTok and you can see them. And our username there is at Worldbuilders Tavern. And of course, you can join our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Worldbuilders Tavern for extra things like after hour episodes, where we get together a little bit more informally and just chat about mostly the episodes, but sometimes random personal stuff like what we named our cats after. So join us there, help support the podcast. But with that, I'm going to tell you, scram.
Bye.
Get out of here.